Happiness is not a stroke of luck that lands on a chosen few. It is a direction, a daily practice, and a set of inner skills anyone can learn. The message at the heart of the art of happiness is simple and powerful. A happy life is not an accident. It is the result of training the mind, opening the heart, and choosing attitudes that reduce suffering and increase well-being for ourselves and for others. This is not about pretending that pain does not exist. It is about learning to meet life as it is with clarity, compassion, and courage, and in doing so transforming the raw material of our experience into meaning, connection, and joy. Every human being wants to be happy and to avoid suffering. This is universal. When we see that fact clearly, we begin to treat our own inner life with respect. We stop shaming ourselves for wanting happiness and instead ask wiser questions. What conditions make the mind peaceful? What habits make the heart open? What beliefs create unnecessary pain? What practices tilt the balance toward contentment? The pursuit of happiness then becomes ethical and practical. Ethical because real happiness is inseparable from the well-being of others. Practical because we can learn methods that work consistently if we apply them with patience. The first lesson is to recognize that happiness is a skill. Skills are built through repetition. If we rehearse worry, we become expert worriers. If we rehearse gratitude, we become skilled at noticing goodness. If we rehearse anger, our temper becomes quick. If we rehearse patience, our resilience deepens. This is not magic. It is mental conditioning. The mind changes as we train it. Even a few minutes each day devoted to wholesome states plants seeds that will ripen into steady qualities. When we accept that practice shapes experience, we reclaim our agency. We stop waiting for circumstances to become perfect and begin working with the mind we have today. The second lesson is to clarify what happiness is and what it is not. Pleasure is wonderful, but it is unstable. It rises and falls with stimulation, achievement, praise, and novelty. Joy is deeper. Joy is a sense of inner contentment, a quiet ease that does not depend on constant excitement. The book invites us to cultivate the causes of contentment: a clear conscience, warm relationships, a purposeful life, a balanced mind that can experience emotions without being ruled by them. When we chase pleasure alone, we become exhausted and hungry for the next hit. When we cultivate contentment, we discover a well that does not run dry. The third lesson is compassion. Compassion is the wish for beings to be free from suffering, combined with a willingness to help. It is not sentimentality. It is strength. Compassion turns the heart outward and breaks the prison of self-obsession that magnifies our own pain. The paradox is profound. The more we care about others, the happier we become. When we practice compassion, we reduce resentment, envy, and isolation. We feel connected to the web of life. We remember that our struggles are shared by countless people. Compassion also guides wise action. We speak more gently. We listen more carefully. We forgive more quickly. We set boundaries without hatred. Each compassionate act is a small victory over suffering, and those victories add up. The fourth lesson is perspective. Much suffering grows from narrow focus. We see only the immediate frustration and forget the larger picture. We interpret events as personal attacks when they are impersonal conditions. We decide that a temporary setback defines the whole story. Perspective breaks this trance. When difficulty arises, we pause and widen our view. Is this challenge permanent or passing? Has anyone else faced it and survived? What might I learn from it in a year's time? What opportunities might be hidden in it? Perspective does not erase pain, but it makes pain workable. It returns freedom to choose a response, rather than collapsing into reaction. The fifth lesson is to examine negative emotions with honesty and kindness. Anger, fear, jealousy, guilt, and shame are not enemies to be destroyed. They are signals to be understood. Anger may be pointing to a boundary that needs protection. Fear may be warning us to prepare. Jealousy may reveal an unlived value. Guilt may be calling us back to integrity. Shame often needs the healing truth that worth is inherent and not something we must earn. When we bring curiosity to these emotions, we can harvest their information without letting them steer the ship. The practice is straightforward. Name the emotion. Feel where it lives in the body. Breathe. Notice the thought patterns that feed it. Ask what wise action is needed. Do that action, then let the story go. The sixth lesson is patience. Patience is not passivity. It is the calm strength that allows us to do what must be done without being torn apart by urgency. When we are impatient, we waste energy fighting reality. When we are patient, we work with causes and conditions as they are, improving them step by step. Patience turns waiting into training. Every traffic jam becomes breath practice. Every delay becomes a chance to release the tight fist of control. Over time, patience builds confidence. We discover that we can handle far more than we thought. The seventh lesson is the power of realistic thinking. Happiness thrives on reality, not denial. The mind often exaggerates threats, underestimates our capacity, and invents harsh stories about ourselves and others. We can challenge these distortions with reason and evidence. Is this thought totally true? What else could be true? What are the facts? What would a wise friend say? Where am I ignoring the good? Realistic thinking is not forced positivity. It is balanced seeing. It includes both the difficulties and the strengths, the losses and the resources, the risks and the possibilities. This balance reduces fear and restores choice. The eighth lesson is the practice of gratitude. Gratitude trains attention to notice support, beauty, and kindness already present. It breaks the habit of taking for granted. When we record 3 things each day that we appreciate, the mind begins to scan for blessings. The taste of clean water, the resilience of the body, a kind message from a friend, a lesson learned from a mistake. Gratitude does not deny pain. It simply refuses to let pain cancel the whole truth of our lives. Over time, gratitude builds a quiet wealth that no circumstance can steal. The 9th lesson is about relationships. Human beings are social creatures. Isolation amplifies suffering. Loving connection strengthens happiness. The book emphasizes basic attitudes that nourish relationships. warmth, honesty, empathy, a willingness to apologize, the courage to forgive, the patience to listen without planning a reply, the humility to learn the story behind another person's behavior. When conflicts arise, we focus on understanding before being understood. We speak from our own experience instead of accusing. We avoid absolute language. We remember that every person we meet wants to be happy and not to suffer, just as we do. This shared wish softens the heart and opens paths to reconciliation. The 10th lesson is meaningful work. Work is not only about income. It is a field for practicing compassion, patience, and integrity. Even if our job is not perfect, we can infuse it with purpose by serving others well. We can aim to reduce harm, increase usefulness, and bring a spirit of care to every task. We can also align our career choices, as far as circumstances allow, with our values and strengths. When we spend our days contributing to something larger than ourselves, we feel the natural pride that comes from usefulness. This pride is different from ego. It is a quiet satisfaction that feeds contentment. The 11th lesson is ethics. A happy mind rests on a moral foundation. When we act against our conscience, the mind cannot relax. It keeps looking over its shoulder. Ethical living creates inner peace. Honesty, generosity, non-violence, and responsibility are not rules meant to restrict joy. They are practices that protect joy. They prevent the shame and fear that follow betrayal, theft, cruelty, or deceit. Ethics also deepen trust with others, which multiplies support and cooperation. If we make a mistake, we correct it quickly. We apologize. We repair. We resolve to do better. The mind respects those efforts and allows us to move forward. The 12th lesson is to distinguish pain from suffering. Pain is the raw experience of loss, illness, conflict, or disappointment. Suffering is the extra weight we add through resistance and story. Why is this happening to me? It will always be like this. I cannot bear it. When pain arises, we meet it directly with breath, kindness, and wise action. We do not add the story of doom. We acknowledge that pain is part of being alive. We remember that countless others have faced similar pain and survived. We look for supports. We take the next helpful step. This approach does not trivialize pain. It dignifies it by treating it honestly and skillfully. The 13th lesson is mindfulness. Mindfulness is present moment awareness with a friendly attitude. It brings the mind home. Without mindfulness, we live in a trance of distraction, carried away by thoughts of past and future. With mindfulness, we see thoughts as thoughts, feelings as feelings, sensations as sensations. We create space to choose. A simple daily practice is enough to change the tone of experience. Sit comfortably. Feel the natural breath. When the mind wanders, notice that it wandered and return to the breath gently. Add kindness by wishing well for yourself and others during the practice. Over weeks and months, the mind becomes steadier, kinder, and clearer. The 14th lesson is compassion in action. Compassion is not only a feeling, it is a behavior. We can make service a habit. Offer a sincere smile. Give someone our full attention. Let another driver merge. Share what we have. Write a message of encouragement. Volunteer when possible. Advocate for fairness. Support those who are vulnerable. These acts are not small. They shape identity. They tell the heart who we are. They build a reservoir of meaning and connection that sustains us during hard times. The 15th lesson is to befriend impermanence. Everything changes. Youth becomes age. Health rises and falls. Relationships evolve. Projects begin and end. Resisting impermanence multiplies suffering. Embracing it brings freedom. When we remember that all things are passing, we hold them more lightly and cherish them more fully. We also worry less about the future because we know that nothing is fixed. New causes will emerge, new strengths will appear. Impermanence is not the enemy. It is the space where growth becomes possible. The 16th lesson is self-compassion. Many people speak to themselves with a voice they would never use with a friend. They call themselves failures, imposters, or burdens. This harshness does not create excellence. It creates fear and paralysis. Self-compassion is not self-pity and not an excuse for laziness. It is the courage to face our human limits with warmth and honesty. It sounds like this: I made a mistake, and I will learn from it. I am struggling, and I will support myself through it. I am worthy of care, and I will act accordingly. When the inner tone softens, our energy returns. We try again with wisdom rather than with panic. The 17th lesson is realistic hope. Hope is the belief that wholesome effort can improve our situation. It does not guarantee the exact outcome we want. It promises that movement is possible. Realistic hope is built on small wins. We choose one helpful habit and practice it consistently. We track progress. We celebrate improvements in mood, focus, or relationships. We keep going when we miss a day. Over time, these small wins accumulate into big changes, and the brain begins to expect progress. That expectation itself reduces despair. The 18th lesson is resilience. Resilience is the ability to return to balance after disruption. It grows from a network of supports, a sense of purpose, caring relationships, daily practices that steady the mind, health habits that protect the body, and beliefs that make sense of suffering. When adversity arrives, we lean on this network. We rest when we are tired. We seek counsel when we are confused. We take the next small step. We avoid harsh self-judgment. We keep compassion active. With each challenge survived, resilience strengthens. We begin to trust our capacity to face life as it is. The 19th lesson is the difference between control and influence. Much anxiety comes from trying to control what is not ours to control. We cannot control how others think, the weather, the economy, or the past. We can influence our habits, our attention, our words, our effort, and the way we treat people. When we focus on influence, we feel empowered and responsible. When we insist on control, we feel tense and helpless. This shift is practical. Each morning we identify a few actions that are fully within our influence. We do them with care. At night we acknowledge that we did what we could, and we release the rest. The 20th lesson is to simplify. Complexity drains energy. Simplicity frees it. We simplify our goals by choosing a few that truly matter. We simplify our space by removing clutter that creates mental noise. We simplify our schedule by protecting time for rest, relationships, and reflection. We simplify our inputs by limiting the stream of alarming news and unhelpful comparison. Simplicity is not deprivation. It is alignment. It is the art of making room for what nourishes happiness. The 21st lesson is to make friends with the body. The mind and body are partners. Care for one affects the other. Regular movement, nourishing food, sufficient sleep, sunlight, and time in nature are not luxuries. They are pillars of mental health. When the body is chronically depleted, the mind struggles to stay balanced. We respect the body with realistic routines. Gentle exercise most days, a wind-down ritual at night. Balanced meals eaten with attention. Moments of still breathing during the day. As the body steadies, the mind finds it easier to settle. The 22nd lesson is to coordinate wisdom and compassion. Wisdom sees reality clearly. Compassion cares for reality tenderly. Wisdom without compassion can become cold. Compassion without wisdom can become naive. Together they form a reliable guide. Wisdom asks what is true and what consequences will follow. Compassion asks who will be affected and how can harm be reduced. Before making decisions, we invite both voices to speak. The mind then acts with clarity and the heart remains open. The 23rd lesson is steady practice. Happiness is not the result of a single breakthrough. It is the fruit of many small choices repeated over time. We build a simple daily rhythm. On waking, set a kind intention for the day. During the day, pause for 3 breaths when tension rises. Engage one deliberate act of kindness. In the evening, reflect on 1 thing learned and 3 things appreciated. Sit for a few minutes of quiet mindfulness. These habits are modest and powerful. They shape attention, reduce reactivity, and reinforce meaning. The 24th lesson is skillful speech. Words can heal or harm. To protect happiness, we speak truthfully, kindly, and helpfully. We pause before speaking to ask whether our words are necessary and accurate. We avoid gossip and needless criticism. We give praise freely when it is sincere. We ask rather than accuse. We use I statements to describe our experience. We practice the courage to say no without aggression and yes without resentment. When we fail, we apologize quickly. Clean speech leaves a clean mind. The 25th lesson is to cultivate cheerfulness. Cheerfulness is not denial of suffering. It is the ability to let light in even when clouds gather. We can practice cheerful rituals that lift the heart. A morning smile even before getting out of bed, playing music that uplifts. Looking for the first beautiful thing we see outside our window, sending a quick message of thanks to someone who helped us. Choosing a posture that signals dignity and openness. These small gestures nudge the mind toward buoyancy and often change the day's direction. The 26th lesson is forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing harm. It means releasing the poison of hatred so we do not continue to drink it. We forgive because we deserve peace. The process can be gradual. We acknowledge the hurt honestly. We feel the grief that sits beneath anger. We remind ourselves that every person acts from their level of confusion and pain. We set boundaries where needed. Then, as we are ready, we loosen the grip of resentment. Sometimes forgiveness is renewed many times. Each time it frees a little more energy for living. The 27th lesson is to learn from suffering. Adversity can deepen compassion for others. It can reveal hidden strengths. It can refine priorities. It can crack open a rigid identity and let humility in. To harvest these gifts, we do not rush to explain pain away. We sit with it, held by steady breath and supportive people. We ask gentle questions. What is this teaching me about love? What is this teaching me about limits and courage? What matters most now? When insight arises, we honor it by living differently. The 28th lesson is community. We thrive when we belong. Belonging does not require perfection. It requires presence, contribution, and goodwill. We invest in communities that share humane values. Family, friends, colleagues, faith groups, creative circles, and neighborhoods. We show up. We participate. We offer help and accept it. Community multiplies joy and divides sorrow. It holds us when we are weak and challenges us when we become complacent. In community, we remember that our life is not only about us. The 29th lesson is to keep a beginner's mind. When we believe we already know everything, growth stops. When we approach life with curiosity, growth resumes. Beginner's mind asks fresh questions. What am I missing? What can I learn here? How might I be wrong? What would a child notice that I am overlooking? This spirit dissolves arrogance and invites discovery. It also keeps relationships alive because we continue to see the people we love as dynamic and mysterious rather than fixed. The 30th lesson is joy in the present moment. Much unhappiness comes from postponing life. We tell ourselves we will enjoy later when the project is done, or the promotion is achieved, or the problem disappears. But life is always happening now. We can train ourselves to taste the simple joys that already exist. Warm tea on the tongue, breath moving in the chest, a smile shared with a stranger, the feel of water on our hands when we wash them. These moments are not trivial. They are doorways to the feeling of being fully alive. The more we step through them, the more natural joy becomes. To translate these lessons into daily life, we can adopt a practical plan. Each morning set an intention such as today, I will cultivate compassion for myself and others, and I will meet difficulties with patience. Spend a few minutes with the breath, letting the mind settle. During the day, practice small acts of kindness and take brief pauses to reset attention. Notice when negative emotions arise, name them, breathe, and respond with wisdom rather than impulse. Make time for movement, nourishing food, and rest. In the evening, reflect on what went well, where you struggled, and what you learned. Offer forgiveness to yourself and others before sleep. Repeat this rhythm gently and persistently. As we practice, we will still face grief, fear, and uncertainty. The point is not to erase them, but to meet them differently. When grief comes, we let tears fall and we let love speak. When fear comes, we make plans where we can, and then we return to the breath. When uncertainty comes, we focus on influence rather than control. Through all of it, we keep compassion at the center. Compassion for ourselves because we are human. Compassion for others because they are human. This shared humanity is the ground on which a peaceful heart stands. In time, an inner confidence grows. We realize that happiness is not fragile because it no longer depends solely on external conditions. It is supported by habits, perspectives, and values that travel with us. We become steadier in storms and more grateful in calm weather. We become a refuge for others. Our presence itself begins to comfort and encourage the people around us. This is one of the sweetest fruits of the path. Happiness radiates. It becomes service. You do not need to be a monk to live this way. You do not need perfect circumstances. You need a sincere heart, a willingness to practice, and patience with yourself. Start where you are. Choose one lesson to emphasize this week. Perhaps gratitude, perhaps patience, perhaps mindful breathing. Practice it every day and let it reshape your experience. Next week, add another. Over months and years, these habits will rewrite the story of your life. Remember the core principles. Happiness is a skill that grows with training. Real joy is deeper than pleasure and more stable than praise. Compassion is both the path and the destination. Perspective transforms problems into teachers. Negative emotions can be understood and guided, rather than feared and obeyed. Patience conserves energy and grows strength. Realistic thinking respects truth and frees possibility. Gratitude protects the heart from bitterness. Relationships are the soil where happiness grows roots. Work can be a field of service and meaning. Ethics create the inner safety on which peace rests. Pain is part of life, but suffering can be reduced. Mindfulness returns choice. Impermanence invites presence. Self-compassion restores courage. Hope and resilience grow through small wins. Influence matters more than control. Simplicity clarifies. Caring for the body steadies the mind. Wisdom and compassion together lead the way. Community sustains us. Beginner's mind keeps us learning. Joy is available right now. Make these truths your daily companions. Let them shape your thoughts, your words, and your actions. With each kind breath and each helpful deed, the art of happiness becomes less an idea and more your lived reality. This is not a destination you reach once and for all. It is a way of traveling. Walk it gently. Walk it bravely. And as you do, you will discover that happiness is not something you chase down the road. Happiness is what you carry within and what you share with every step.